Okay. Hi guys, welcome back. I have not been here in a hot minute, so I'm very excited to be doing a YouTube live. My name is Cassie, and I'm here with Elise. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Elise. I run the Octopus, which is an OCD advocacy and recovery shop, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm an open OCD advocate as well. And I love the work an OCD does, and I'm super happy I can be here. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. And you guys know me from OCD. I'm a peer advisor with everybody, but I do a ton of work in the community, so I'm sure you guys see my face all over the place. But we will go ahead and get started. And of course, this is a Q&A. Neither of us are clinicians or experts. We're just two people like you who have OCD and have been doing this shindig for a while. So we're going to go ahead and jump into some questions that we had. And Elise, if you see any that you want to point out, please do so.
Yeah, sure.
But I will go ahead. We did have a couple questions, so I'll start there. Okay, so this is a two-part question that I want to start off with. This person says, hi, I constantly have the thought of what anxiety or OCD will make me feel anytime I choose to do anything. Not sure if it's an obsession or fear, just fear related. I do everything I set out to do for the day, even with that thought. Any experiences with this or pointers to overcome? I think that's a really common thing with OCD. And then Elise, you can definitely chime in and tell me what your thoughts are. I think we have this like predisposition fear whenever we have to make a choice, like, oh, what is my OCD going to tell me? Or, what's the thought or fear that's going to come out of it? And I think part of that is just learning, like, I can't be afraid to do something because, like, my OCD is telling me not to. And I definitely feel that still certain days, like, I'll go to do something and in the back of my mind, I'm like, what if I do this wrong? Or what if my OCD gets triggered afterwards? And it's like kind of that embrace uncertainty that we talk about kind of comes through there, but definitely takes practice.
Yeah, I can relate to this a lot. Just like thinking about how it's going to affect everything I do during the day, I deal with this a lot myself. So I think it's really awesome that you do everything you set out to do for the day with it. That's like an amazing foundation for everything, really, just making sure it doesn't make you stray from what you want to do. And I feel like hopefully, you never know, maybe in time it'll get easier. But right now, as long as that's like your foundation, it sounds like you're showing OCD something at least.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. Any progress is good progress. Haley's been a frequenter of our lives. She said she finished the weekly OCD meetings and her OCD levels were 75 and now 38 and now 25. That's awesome, Haley. You're doing so good. I'm very happy to hear that you're still attending the lives and such. So, things are going well. Okay, let's go down here and see. And she said she's getting contacts tomorrow and she completed regionals for gymnastics. That's so awesome.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Okay, here's a good one on relationship OCD.
I have this theme, so I'm like, let's go.
Yeah, we felt this, so this will be good. It says, hi there, does relationship OCD involve having intrusive thoughts about an ex-boyfriend? Example, I am having thoughts, I don't love my partner, but I want to be with my ex-boyfriend instead. And it's causing me so much distress. All right, Elise, do you want to chime in first on this one?
I definitely, so you can really have intrusive thoughts about anything. So it's totally possible. It's really hard sometimes to answer these without giving reassurance. I'm like torn.
Yeah, that's the hard part of these is trying to offer support without asking for reassurance. And giving advice that's kind of like above our heads, so to speak. So it for me, it kind of does, and it kind of doesn't. I think a lot of OCD themes are about getting intrusive thoughts, right? And another thing that actually Tori and I discussed at one point on live, and she was actually one of the first people to point this out to me, But relationship OCD doesn't have to just be intimate relationships. So I would say relationship OCD could look like anything from, you know, doubts about your friends, about if they really care about you, or if you're dating the right person, or, you know, having intrusive thoughts about your significant other specifically. There's so many things that go into relationship OCD, and that's actually one of the themes that if you go on the NoCD app, you can actually try prompts on it. So if you go into the exercise feature and you're like, I struggle with relationship OCD, but I'm not quite sure how it looks, they can kind of give you a couple common prompts that people put in.
It sounds like good advice. I would just agree and echo that relationship OCD is just about messing with your relationships, past, present, future, whenever they, like, wherever, whenever.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. When my intrusive thoughts come in, I don't react to them anymore, but it makes me feel like a fake that I will act on them. Ooh, what are your thoughts on this?
I think that's called the backdoor spike. There's like a term for that. Yeah, it's like just another way for OCD to like try to get your attention. So I've definitely gone through this too, especially with harm OCD, where I've been like, oh, okay, so now I must be okay with this, and that's why it doesn't bother me anymore. And then that like kind of just disrupts you all over again. But I think it's just about embracing that maybe you would act on them, maybe you should be reacting, maybe you shouldn't, but going about whatever you have planned anyway, which I know is way harder than it sounds like when I just say it in a sentence, for sure.
Yeah, I think too, you know, the whole goal with ERP is to get to a point where we are kind of desensitized to the trigger so that it doesn't really have a big effect on us anymore. It's not something that we're really like triggered by, basically. We don't get that anxiety, scared feeling. So I think that might be something important to remember. And just like Elise said, you know, that's definitely common, but it's not really something that I think that shouldn't dishearten you from continuing therapy and continue working at it. Just keep reminding yourself, like, you know, that's the goal, is we don't want to let these thoughts bother us. And it doesn't mean that we agree with them. It means that we're indifferent. Okay. How do I know if I'm doing ERP correctly?
Ooh, that hits me. I'm in ERP right now, and I tend to put off my exposures because I'm afraid I'm going to do them wrong. So I know in theory what the answer to this is, which is you don't know. You don't know if you're doing it correctly or not. You just try.
Yeah, and another thing too is to remember that, you know, the goal with ERP is basically you're trying to trigger yourself a little bit with it and sit with that feeling. So, you know, if we're sitting there and doing an exposure and we're trying to put ourselves in a moment where, or in a real life moment where your OCD would normally tell you to like do something to make those thoughts stop, whether it's, you know, I need to check this again, or I need to go research this, or I need to ask for reassurance, or I need to repeat this ritual over and over again until it feels right. Anything like that you would normally do, you're resisting doing that action. And you're just sitting with that feeling of uncomfortability. And the nice thing about it, if anyone hasn't done ERP yet, it's not for a long time. Most exposures last like 5 to 10 minutes, I think, depending on where you're at in treatment. And, you know, you never start with your most difficult exposure. You're going to start out with things that are a little bit more easier and then eventually work your way up. So, yeah, like Elise said, it's hard to know if you're doing it correctly. But if it feels uncomfortable, chances are you're probably doing it right. All right. We got some hellos from people.
Hello.
Very cool. Hi, Joanne. All right. How do you focus on other things, socializing, schoolwork, etc., without obsessing over your current OCD theme? Do you want to start off this one?
I'm still thinking. Do you have an answer ready for this one?
Yeah, so for me, it's hard because, I think something that I rely on is distractions whenever I have an obsession. Like, usually I struggle really bad when I'm by myself. So sometimes things like that, I kind of help distract me from whatever my obsessive thoughts are. But I would just say, try to use it as a time. I almost think about like compartmentalizing. Like, I give myself like 10 minutes that I'm focusing on whatever my OCD is trying to tell me to focus on, or if I need to redo something a couple times. But then if I have schoolwork to do or regular work, or if I'm going to do something with my friends, I kind of tell myself like, all right, I'm not going to think about this. I'm not going to look at this. I'm not going to keep checking whatever it is. Checking something is really bad for me. And if I'm out with people, they will definitely notice if I'm checking stuff. So I try to say like, I'm done, wash my hands of it, and then go about whatever I was doing. And it's definitely hard. It's so hard. But I think it's something that like the more you practice at it, the easier it'll get. So just, yeah, and that's honestly like a real life exposure if you think about it. You are in a moment where your OCD is trying to ruminate, trying to make you do stuff again, and telling yourself no and taking yourself out of that situation is stopping that downward spiral that we find ourselves getting into.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not totally sure of the context of why this person was asking this, but I try not to put a lot of pressure on myself to not think of, like, if I'm obsessing about something and I'm trying to do something else at the same time, which may be helpful for some people. Like, I'm thinking the other day I was really anxious about going to hang out with my friend, and like I wasn't like, I hope I stop obsessing by the time I get there. I was just like, I need to go do this and like try.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe that's like self-compassion, to like expect that you may struggle, but that doesn't mean that you can't try to still like be there anyway. And then it eventually went down, as often we see when you're obsessing about something. If you give it time, your body naturally relaxes. It just can't stay in that heightened state forever.
Yeah, and that's something that, you can practice with ERP, especially if you're using the app. They check in every few minutes like, hey, how's your anxiety levels? And if you notice, I was doing an exposure today over my lunch break, which was not fun, but it was okay.
Me too, I feel that.
I was like, I'm pretty sure my lunch break is supposed to be for relaxing stuff, and I'm sitting here doing an exposure, but I needed it, so it's okay. But I was sitting there, and in the beginning I was like, oh my god, this is awful. And then like 2 minutes later, I'm like, I'm getting kind of bored of this, and that's really the goal of it. Okay, let's go find another question. Oh, this is another same person. Okay, how do you prevent sabotaging your friendships and relationships if you have relationship or friendship themed OCD? This is a good one too.
I feel like one thing I've done in the past is and this can be tricky though, because you don't want to be confessing, but I usually do try to clue them in on relationship OCD. I don't necessarily explain it myself. Like, I'll send a link to like an OCD article or something else. I feel like that can help in certain situations personally. Yeah, do you have any advice on this?
Yeah, I think so. This is something that I've struggled with in the past, and I think a lot of it came from things like, with the moral scrupulosity stuff. Like, I would feel like I needed to confess things a lot. So obviously sometimes things in friendships and relationships, like, if you have a group of friends, sometimes things don't need to be repeated, but then if you feel like you need to confess stuff, then it does come up. and just over questioning, like, you know, do you really like me? Are you really my friend? Or things like that. Like, that's all our OCD talking. And it's really hard to separate the two because usually, like, our friendships are very important to us. So I would just say, you know, preventing that, just keep recognizing what is your thoughts and what are your OCD thoughts. A really good way that I've learned to do that is by looking for that sense of urgency, like that, you know, your heart's beating, you're like, I need this answer now, or else something bad's going to happen. So if you get that feeling and it's something that, you know, it's scary to think that our friends might not care about us as much as we do, but chances are, you know, they're our friends. We would know if they weren't really our friends, and it's probably just OCD being OCD and trying to ruin stuff for us. Okay. How do you recommend determining what type of OCD you have? I think the best way is to, for me, I had to research a lot, and it's tricky because a lot of us with OCD research too much. So I think just trying to educate yourself and look for common things. I know I went into treatment knowing that I had like a lot of the just right perfectionism OCD, but then I realized later on that I had a lot of relationship OCD and the friendship stuff, and I had the moral scrupulosity. When I was little, I had magical thinking, but you know, luckily that was something I was able to work through. But it's you realize a lot, not often does someone have just one theme. So it's more than likely that if you have one, you might be experiencing something else too. So you know, without forcing it onto you and obsessing over researching it, I would say just try to educate yourself. The app is great for that. The OCD app, they really help explain all the different subtypes, and there's blog posts too.
Yeah, I think what's important to remember too. So when it comes to the different subtypes, like some of the more taboo, intrusive thought themes like harm, POCD, different. With those subtypes, I find it helpful to know which type you have because there's, I think, an extra layer of stigma on top of the stigma that OCD already has. But in general, when it comes to treatment, determining what type of OCD you have doesn't matter so much because the same approach is going to be used across themes. And if you really want to embrace uncertainty, not knowing exactly what theme you have would definitely fall into that. I'm a big researcher, so like I've already researched all the themes so much that I'm like, it's just too much. So for me, I would be embracing uncertainty and not knowing exactly what a new theme is, or and some stuff never falls into a theme. There's lots of people who have thoughts that don't fall into any of the themes, but they can still be treated too. So then that researching could be tough for some people.
Yeah, and you know, especially with themes, they like Elise said, they don't always fall into a certain theme. So you might just have intrusive thoughts, or you know, it might be very specific to who you are, like, you know, in your life. So if it doesn't fall into a category, don't be disheartened or think there's anything wrong with you. It is honestly, I feel like they make themes because it's a way for like doctors and therapists to kind of help, I guess, group similarities per se, or maybe help people find communities. But it's just it's really seen as like the more common ones across the board. But that doesn't mean none other ones exist. Okay. I'm looking. Do you see any comments that you specifically want to answer? I think this one's a good one. Is it normal in OCD when you see something happen to someone else and you obsessively fear the same thing is going to happen to you? For example, my friend gets a surprise divorce. I think I've kind of felt this, but with like health stuff.
Yeah, that's a big one for me too.
So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So for example, like I know I have like a really big fear of getting dementia or losing my memory, and that didn't really happen until my great grandmother passed away with it, and seeing that like that decline made me like really scared, not just for myself, but like my family members or, you know, my mom, my grandma. Like I was like all of a sudden afraid that was going to happen. And, you know, that led to compulsions and stuff. So I think that's normal. I think when you see something bad happen to somebody else, it's normal for that to come through like, oh my God, what if that happens to me?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I think yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense because it brings it to the forefront of your mind, and you have like it brings the uncertainty of if that's going to happen to you to your mind. It might be something you've never really thought about, and then suddenly you're like, what if this happens to me? I feel like I used to be really nervous that I would have to go gluten-free because I really like food, and I was just like really nervous because I was like, how will I emotionally cope with that? And it is kind of funny because I did end up having to go gluten-free, which we're fine. I'm good. I'm here. But yeah, it's like only when I met someone else who like had to do that, I was like, what if that happens to me? How will I cope with that? And I think that's what it is. If you see someone going through something that you don't want to go through, you start to worry about how you'll cope, and then the compulsions come in to make you feel like you can cope.
Yeah.
Even though it's not happening currently.
Yeah.
So that's why you really stepping away from the compulsions is good, because you're solving something that's not currently happening.
Props to anyone though who is gluten free. I do it every year for Passover, and eating matzah is just like the worst for me. So and every year I do that, I'm like, I'm so thankful I can eat it.
A newfound appreciation. Yeah, no, I survived. I was surprised. It's been almost 5 years, so I'm pretty used to it now.
Nice. Okay, so you actually are gluten free.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Okay, awesome. Let's find another question. Oh, this is a good one. How do you deal with the fear of what if this isn't OCD and the thoughts are true? So I feel like that is something that can be pretty universal across the board. I think especially if it's like things like POCD that are really scary to think, you know, a lot of those themes revolve around that fear of what if this is true? For example, like with that, like, what if I am a pedophile? I think that that's part of the embracing the uncertainty. As scary as it is with that example, it really is sitting there like, this may be true or this might not be. I can accept that I might not ever know. And sitting with that feeling, and it's crazy uncomfortable. It's something that I've been having to work on myself. And a new theme like that is just, it rocks you, but it's also like, that's the point that you have to get at, is that, you know, telling your mind, I don't think it matters if I know or not. And it's like, we know that we're not, but it's convincing our minds that.
Yeah, I think too, for me, an experience, I had a lot of trouble with this with harm OCD because I was worried. It felt really dangerous to not know if it was real or not. Because I was like, what if like I hurt somebody? Like I need to figure out if I'm going to do that or not so that everyone is safe and blah, blah. But honestly, what helped me deal with it was just trying to live my life doing the things I would normally be doing. And I gradually realized that I didn't need to know for sure if I was going to do that today or not in order to like move forward with my day. Like it's like, now it's like the thought comes in, I'm like, that's a possibility, but like I have to clock into work now, so I'm going to think about this later, which is crazy because I never thought I would be at that point. I used to like, it was really severe at one point, but I think that's why a lot of OCD treatment is about like behavior, like teaching yourself through behavior what is like safe and what's not, because you can't think your way out of it. You have to act your way out of it. So like I would go to class and I would like go to extracurriculars, and then I'd be like, oh, I did survive today, not knowing if I was going to do that or not.
Mm-hmm. That's really good advice. Even, because we feel like we need to know everything for the long run, and that's so not true. So even if you can tell yourself, I don't need to know for the next hour, and focusing on what you're doing for the next hour. Sometimes I do that, and by the time it's done, it's like I forget what I was obsessing about. Or it doesn't matter to me anymore. Sometimes I'll look back and remember things, and I was like, why was I obsessing so long about that? Mm-hmm. But in the moment, it's so hard to tell yourself that.
Yeah, no, it's really tough. That's why it's just like blind. I'm like, just blindly move myself towards an activity and just like keep the train moving in some direction.
Exactly. All right. This one's kind of similar to the one we had earlier. It's common to get past the anxiety and panic attacks from harm thoughts towards others and feel numbness, which makes me feel like I'm actually going to act on them. That's kind of similar to what we answered earlier. Like, you can't look at it as now I'm going to do this or now I am like this. It's that you're letting yourself get bored of that thought, and it's not so triggering to hear it or think that thought anymore.
Yeah, I would give the same advice too. Even if you feel numbness, then move towards whatever you need or want to be doing for the day and see if you do it. That sounds like really nuts to me, but like, it's like this. It's just another way for OCD to be like, all right, so you're not scared of that, but like, please pay attention to me somehow, because I'm trying to talk to you. And it's like, same thing. I'm going to go do my work. I'm going to go to class, even though I really don't feel like it, or something like that.
Yeah. Do it scared, as your sticker says.
Oh, yeah, there we go. I got it right next to me. I'll whip it out.
I was going to say, I have mine somewhere. I just got this
Do it scared.
Perfect advice. I just got this new water bottle, and I was like, I can't wait to decorate it with stickers, like all the basic girls, and I'm so excited. And that's one of the stickers I'm going to put on it. And I remember my partner was like, Casie, are you like, you need to make sure when you put it there, you can't keep peeling it off and doing it over again. I was like, I know, I need to like put it there and commit to it. So
do you have trouble with that? Like,
sometimes, although I was like, I think this one I'll be okay with because my laptop has like a ton of stickers on it.
Yeah.
But that got a little bit easier as I added more because I ran out of options. I had to just kind of find a space for it. So this is a clean slate. So I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, I encourage you to keep it in one spot if that's the challenge as an exposure. But I will say the stickers can be moved position. So I'm like, this is good and bad. It enables people, because I'm like that too. I'm like, I would not put stickers on things because I'd be like, what if I don't pick the perfect spot as part of my endless quest for the perfect life as led by my OCD. So I feel you.
But the thing is, as we tell people, you got to do it anyways. And if it's not in the exact right spot, it's okay. You can live with that uncertainty. It is the words of OCD recovery.
Yes, it is.
All right. I just finished my first week of therapy with no OCD, and I love it. Leela is great. I would love to be a peer for others after I go through treatment. How do I become a peer after treatment? So if you ever want to look into working with no OCD, feel free to reach out to us, contact us. Anybody on the care team, reach out and say, hey, I want to learn more about getting involved. But honestly, the best thing after getting through treatment is doing advocacy work, trying to be a part of the community. And I feel like it's so important because so many people don't know what OCD really is. And people who do have it don't always know, or they do know and they don't feel like they have anyone to go to. And it's just kind of sit quietly in shame. I feel like we've all been there before. I always say I would have never believed anybody if they told me I'd be talking about my OCD on a live stream to right now 49 strangers. So
yeah, when I said the thing about me like thinking about harming people before, I was like, oh, I never saw this one being in a live recorded place happening. So you
yeah,
never know.
yeah, it's crazy, but it's that's kind of what recovery is all about, is getting to a place where you can do things that you didn't think you could before. All right. Oh my gosh, my thing went all over the place. I lost my. Okay, here we go. Hi, I'm in the middle of ERP and I'm thinking about quitting because of my scrupulosity OCD. What do you think I should do if the exposures are all against my scrupulosity OCD? I feel like this might be a question for your therapist, just because we don't really have the full picture of all the exposures that you're doing and what's kind of playing against each other. But I would say ask your therapist for guidance on this one. But there is a way to work around it, and they'll be able to tell you that, because ERP is really the best form of treatment. So I think any way that you can keep at that and not let another OCD theme get in the way of it, which sometimes does happen, but there's always a way to work around it so that you don't have to give up completely. Okay. Positive. Okay, sorry, I'm looking at some more questions. If you see any too that you would like to answer.
Well, there's a lot.
Ooh,
someone's gluten-free. Sorry.
okay. How would you suggest disclosing your OCD to friends/family in a way that keeps you safe? I have harm OCD, which would really scare people in my life, but I also may want support from people. I love this question because this is something I struggle with. And then Elise, I would love to hear your thoughts, because you did mention that you have harm OCD.
Oh, yeah.
So something that I try to remind everyone of, and this is because I practice it myself, is that you don't have to disclose the whole story to everybody. So, I have certain people that I just tell them I have OCD, and I try to tell them, it's not cleaning and organizing, it's having intrusive thoughts and obsessive thoughts and doing compulsions to try to make them go away. So some people just know I have OCD. Some people know my specific themes that I have, and what those kind of look like. And then some people I talk to about my intrusive thoughts and kind of support me. They are in the know whenever I have, compulsions come up, or I feel like I'm spiraling. But I categorize them so I don't have everybody knowing. No, not everybody knows about my intrusive thoughts, if that makes sense. So you can tell people that you just have OCD, or, say I have certain subtypes, this is what it is. And if it's something like harm OCD that you're worried about, what will they think, or POCD, a really great way sometimes is to look up an article about it. Like if you go on OCD's website and under the blogs, sometimes they'll have blogs about what is harm OCD. And sometimes just explaining it to them the same way it is in that first paragraph or whatever, is good enough, and it's great, because you don't even have to always go into what your specific harm thoughts are. You can say, this is what this is. And it kind of protects you and keeps you safe, while also opening up that conversation to them. Not Elise.
Yeah, I would just echo a lot of the things you said that I was thinking of. I also have kind of some people know if people don't know I have OCD by now because I have a whole business about it, then we're probably not very well connected. So that's one. And then there are people who know the theme, and then there are people who know the ins and outs of the theme. I tell them the weird things that I'm thinking about. And then and the harm OCD is the one I've had specifically a lot of trouble with. I agree with sending articles. I do, honestly, I really encourage you this is going to be hard, but I encourage you to think about the person's personality before you're telling them. Are you telling someone who's open-minded? Like, I do have some people in my life that I've told the ins and outs of my theme to, and they're very open-minded people, so they're able to have empathy for someone who has an experience that they don't understand. But I also know there are people in my life that if I told them, they'd be like, why are you saying that? Like, what does that even mean? So I encourage you to, keep yourself safe almost, just from like hurt, but really think about who you're telling, because not everyone's going to understand, and that's okay. You don't need them to. But I just don't want you to go through telling someone and not getting their support if you can avoid that. But you can't always avoid that. So.
Yeah, and I think it goes along the lines of, not everybody's going to understand, but, if there's somebody that cares about you, I think the important thing is that they're going to try. So, be patient with people, explain it as you can, and the more people we can get to understand, the more people that are out there that are going to get help. So.
And you have all of us who understand too, which I know isn't the same as people that are maybe right next to you in everyday life, but there are a lot of people that will understand.
Yeah. All right. Thoughts on dating someone else who also has OCD?
I saw this one.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about this? Because I never have, so I'm not really sure. I have a lot of insight.
I haven't dated anyone else with OCD specifically. I do have a lot of really close friends with OCD. I feel like some of the challenges do overlap, and some of the pros. Honestly, I think what matters more than their diagnosis is how well they're managing it. Mm-hmm. Because I have dated people with other mental illnesses, and they had them very well managed by the time that we were dating. And it's fine, like, people go through, like, peaks and valleys, and they might have a relapse, and like, you're there to support them. But you wouldn't want to be with if you don't have your mental health under great control and you're with someone else who also doesn't, it can probably not be the most supportive environment. But I don't think someone having OCD would necessarily be like a no. I feel like I do know a couple people who have dated people with OCD, but I think where you are in your recovery matters more with any mental illness. That I think that is what affects it the most.
I agree. Electronic. I think for some people, social media, it affects it, but I don't think electronics directly do. But there's a lot of triggers. Did you ever see on Instagram, like a few months ago, someone put out a thing that OCD was caused by heavy metals?
Yeah,
and the way to get it was drinking calorie juice.
Yeah, I did see that, and I also thought it made me laugh because I have some physical health problems, and I did venture into like functional medicine, and I did get a heavy metals test, and I didn't have them, and I still had OCD. So
it was just a thing that everyone was just like, wait, what?
Yeah, no, I'm like,
I was so glad it was funny.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look for some more. Oh, nice. So glad to catch you live. Excited to hear from both of you ladies tonight. Very cool. Very excited to have people tuning in and having this sense of community. In ERP right now, I'm struggling with a lack of motivation. Any tips for getting over this hopeless feeling and consistently doing the hard exposures? It is really hard. ERP is a very proactive form of therapy. It's not just like talk therapy where you sit and kind of discuss things. You're really, really tackling things head on. So it's totally understandable having that lack of motivation sometimes. I think when there's times that I felt really hopeless, especially when I was like really in the thick of it, was looking back on some of my earlier exposures that I did and seeing like, oh, there was a point in time where I thought that was really hard, and I was able to work through that. So maybe I'll be able to do this. And I think with OCD, we also have this all or nothing thinking that if we didn't do it exactly right, or we did an exposure and we didn't make it the whole way through, that we're terrible at it. But that's not true, because any little amount of progress is still good progress. So keep trying to work at it, and remind yourself of all the places you were at before that you worked through.
I personally, I also struggle with motivation for ERP, just in general. And I do best when I tie it to things that I value. For example, I went out to hang out with my friend, and I have emetophobia. So like, I can do scripts for that where I like read about or imagine a story, but really going out and like seeing my friend and eating and being worried about it, like there's more of like a reward for me almost. Like I move towards my values, and I think that makes me more motivated when I see how it's going to directly impact my life. Also, it's something you could talk to your therapist about. I feel like maybe you can structure them to be more motivational for you. That's what I did, and it was helpful.
Yeah, and I really like what you said about doing it right before you went out to have lunch and stuff, because I also struggled with having motivation to do my exposures. And I think sometimes I built it up so much that I got to a point where I was like, I can't do it. Like, I would set a reminder at 6 p.m. to do exposures, and at like 5:45, I would magically find something that I was so busy with, and I just didn't have time. It was like clockwork. So, as much as it sucked that I spent my lunch break today doing an exposure, it was kind of nice because I knew I had a set amount of time to do it, and whenever that time was up, I was done. I could take a step back and go put all of my attention on something else. So, and that was something that I struggled with for a while when I was in therapy. Like, how do you go from doing an exposure to all of a sudden, like, putting it away, so to speak, and not continue obsessing about it or thinking about it? And it was something that took a while for me to understand, but I think exactly what you said, Elise, like having something immediately after that you're enjoying, or even going and watching a show. Just anything.
Yeah, I do that. When I watch episodes, I place exposures in between, and then that's way better than nothing.
Do a 5-minute exposure and then go watch a 30-minute episode of something, and that gives you so much time to debrief that you need to do after doing an exposure. It's like you need to have that like moment. So it's something good to do. It makes it a little bit easier. Let me think.
Oh, I really like what KS said.
What time is it at?
8:25.
Okay. I haven't started ERP yet, but that statement about learning to act my way out rather than thinking my way out totally clicked, and I can't wait to get started. That's so awesome. Yeah, I love that. And that's really true. Like, and I think that's why people who have done talk therapy with OCD, it doesn't really work as well, because you're not really trying to make sense of the thoughts. It's like they don't really make sense. So I feel like understanding that it's what it is and kind of working against that cycle is what's going to be most helpful, rather than trying to think like, is this true? Is this not true? Why am I thinking this? We don't know.
Yeah. Now I just need to like make a sign that says that for above my bed, like act your way out, don't think your way out, because I'm saying it here right now, but I'm gonna forget in like 10 minutes. So
yeah,
we all need that.
I was actually just thinking the other day about taking a notebook and like just completely redoing all of my therapy notes, because I have so many like little notebooks here and there that I just filled with notes from when I was in therapy, like, oh my God, that's such good advice. I need to write this down, or, whatever it may be. And they're all over the place. I have sticky notes everywhere. I was like, whoever said OCD was being neat and organized has literally never seen my OCD therapy notes, because you will open up a notebook and then like 20 little sticky notes will fall out. And I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
Story of my life.
I feel that.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what other ones we can find. Guys, we're going to do this for another like 15 or so minutes. I have to make the hard cutoff at an hour, because if not, I've noticed I will continue going on for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I just can't stop.
That sounds fair to me.
Awesome. Okay. Ooh, this is a good one. Okay, so it says, I compulsively Google my trauma, and my friends saw it, and it is my biggest secret. I try to say, oh, I was looking for this one story from TLC, but I'm so embarrassed. What do you do if friends saw an embarrassing compulsion? I would say, Sarah, that if it's somebody that you're really close with, I would maybe just explain what it is. Say, I have OCD, and this is something that was kind of stuck in my head, and I was trying to just work through it, or, anything to kind of, I would open up about it, because I've been at a place where I tried to like explain my way out of doing something silly not silly, but from the outside it might look silly or confusing, but to us it's like, we need to do this, and it's distressing if we don't. So I think for me, I've tried to kind of like laugh it off and be like, oh, haha, it's nothing. But I think sometimes it's better to just be like, I'm sorry, not I'm sorry, but, this is what I'm dealing with. I know it might look weird to you, but it's something that's on my mind, and I'm trying to shake it off. But right now I'm Googling stuff for it. And you never know, that might be somebody new that can be supporting you.
Yeah, I also noticed, just like with the phrasing of the question, that this was a trauma of yours, and I feel like I understand being embarrassed of something that happened that maybe you couldn't control, but also, yeah, like our friends are supposed to support us and lift us up. So if they aren't supportive, then maybe they're not meant to be like a super great friend of yours. Like maybe they should be a more casual friend. But I feel like people can sometimes surprise you with how understanding they can be too.
Yes, definitely. And I think it's important too, we self-isolate a lot, and we kind of shut people out, but it's also fair to them to give somebody a chance, because, you never know how understanding they are. You never know what they might be going through as a person. So it is really important to give people that chance to be supportive. But I love all the people commenting and playing. I see like Love Lana and India playing, talking about music and instruments. I love like all the little chats going on.
I'm just gonna grab my charger really quick, because my computer might die before even the 12 minutes that are left.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna try to find another question.
All right, here we go. Let's see. Gotta figure this out.
Okay. Next question I pulled up. Sometimes, even if the person can't fully understand OCD, they can often understand that the worries you're experiencing are significant to you. They don't need to understand the support and love you. That is such a good point. I think that's important with anything, even beyond OCD, is as a person in general, even if you don't understand something, you don't always need to fully understand the big picture to support and love someone. I think it's enough to, if somebody's going through something that you might not understand, I think sometimes the best thing to say is, what can I do to support you? Or what what do you need from me? What can I provide for you to help you through this? So I really like that one, though. That one's good. After living with OCD for over 5 years, I've learned to live with it by learning about acceptance and commitment therapy and mindfulness. I'm much better than before, but I still live with it. Should I seek treatment? I think that I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm always like, if you can afford it, like if you're in a place where you can afford it and it's still bothering you, like you don't feel like you really have it fully managed, you could. But also, I'm aware that you might be chasing like perfection that you can't reach. Like you're never gonna fully not have any anxiety about it. But I mean, it seems very easy to give no CD a call. So, like,
yeah, and honestly, just if you think that you are still living at a point where it's affecting your everyday life, I think that is kind of the telltale that, maybe you should talk to somebody and see if it's something that's worth getting help with. And if you don't know, if you don't know if you're ready to go into treatment or if you quite need it yet, you can always do things like go to support groups, and try to find something that does more acceptance and commitment therapy. ERP is the best form of treatment, but I know other things like practicing mindfulness and ACT therapy, if those worked for you, at the end of the day, that's all that matters is what's going to be helpful for you. So, there's lots of different paths you can take. And the nice thing too is a lot of times when we do things like ERP therapy, they give us a lot of skills that we can carry on even if we're not in a moment where it's like really bad. Let me think of what else.
I do see one from Maria L. 833 about depression and OCD, and I see a lot of people commenting back and forth about how talk therapy isn't good for that. And I did think that's interesting. I had a very big problem with OCD and depression, so I did kind of want to speak to this one. Because it can be tricky. It kind of depends what your depression is from, because OCD can make you more depressed because it can alter your quality of life so much, or lower it, no, alter it, lower it, keeping it real. But I had really, really bad depression, and I actually was in ERP, and I took a break from ERP and went to get treatment specifically for depression. And now it is easier for me to do the ERP because I'm not as depressed as I was before, but that everyone's different. I had other things in addition to the OCD that were depressing me. So I would definitely bring it up to whoever you speak to, but I actually see 2 different therapists at the same time. I'm very fortunate that I'm able to do that. And one is a DBT therapist and the other is an ERP specialist. If you have OCD, I think it is definitely important to have someone on your team if they are the only person that is knowledgeable in ERP. But you could try to, if you don't currently have someone, you can try to find someone who's knowledgeable in depression also, because many treatment providers are familiar with both.
Mm-hmm. And usually what we say in, whenever we're taking in new members for an OCD, we typically tell people to start with the most prominent disorder, because comorbidity is super common, for people to have more than one thing going on. So we just say start with the most distressing, the one that's like on the forefront, and then go back and handle the smaller stuff. But I'm very similar with Elise in that I had extremely bad depression whenever I first got into treatment for my OCD. And I thought that I was going to have to deal with my OCD and then deal with the major depression disorder. And I realized that going through treatment, not only, and they keep track of this too, especially when you go through an OCD, but as my OCD went from this like super high point to like a lot lower, my anxiety went down a lot, my depression went down drastically, and my stress levels, just everything got so much better. So I would, all of these things go hand in hand and kind of play on each other. And it's like, I kind of felt like my OCD was getting better, but my entire mental well-being was getting better. And it was like everything was just kind of coming back together at once. So I would say, Maria, definitely deal with what's on the most distressing on the forefront. But if you're dealing with your OCD right now and you're wondering about your depression, I would maybe give it a chance and see if it gets better with your treatment, because OCD is very anxiety inducing. It is very depressing to live with. And I think whenever you get to this point of recovery with OCD, it's, your everyday life just becomes so much better because you don't feel like you're in this grip by something. So I think it's very common for a lot of us to feel that way, and it's normal. But that's what makes getting better so nice. ERP sucks, but getting better is so nice. All right.
We have 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Okay, so if we missed any questions, I'm so sorry. We have so many questions coming through. But, keep submitting them. Keep coming back to more live streams. We do them all the time. But yeah, if you have a question or you saw one that was good that wasn't answered, feel free to throw it down in the bottom. And yes, we will try to answer a few little ones. Elise, while we're wrapping this up, is there anything that you wanted to share or anything?
I just wanted to say I'd love to interact with you all more. If you want to come follow me on my personal advocacy platform on Insta and on TikTok. I love TikTok. OCD TikToks for life. It's the octopus. My handle is right here next to my name. Yeah, so if you just want to keep interacting with me there, I'd love to get to know you all more. I share stuff about OCD advocacy, and I had a really good time answering everybody's questions.
Yeah, sorry, I'm like still reading through all these questions. You guys ask so many good questions, and we love to interact with people. I still remember all the time when I did not know anybody in the world who had OCD, and I was sitting on the NoCD app talking to strangers virtually, trying to understand what the heck was going on with me. So it's very surreal having so many people now that I can talk to and understand, and hearing other people who were at the same point as me that maybe only knew 1 or 2 people with OCD, but they've never talked to anybody. And it's really cool. So, nobody's alone in this. We have so many people who love and support us, and it's so important to get help. You do not need to suffer where you're at, and you don't need to feel like you have to live with this disorder. There is hope. It might not feel like that in the moment, and it might not feel like that right now, but you have to keep fighting. That is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. Well, we will see you next time. Hopefully, Elise will join us for another NoCD live stream soon. But I think we're going to have some more on the weekdays. I know Kyle and Tori do some, and then Dr. McGrath is on Wednesdays. So definitely tune into those.
Yep, sounds good. I'll actually be live on the Instagram tomorrow with Tori.
Oh, perfect. Do you know what time you do that?
Yeah, it's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay, Eastern time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So guys, go ahead and check that out. And yeah, we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.